Hi there, in this video, we will learn how to write our own Xpath expressions. You already know what Xpath is and its purpose in UI automation. In AutomationEdge, GUI Spy helps us capture the XPath of any UI element automatically. However, there are situations where we need to write our own XPath expressions by identifying attributes that are stable and predictable. This helps make automation more reliable, maintainable. We'll use the OrangeHRM website throughout this video. The link is given in the description. There are two commonly used approaches to writing path expressions: absolute XPath and relative XPath. Absolute XPath starts from the HTML root and traces every step down to the target element. It follows the exact page structure and breaks the moment anything above the element changes, say a div added, a wrapper inserted. Because of this dependency on page structure, absolute XPath is generally not recommended for automation projects. A relative XPath starts with a double slash and searches from anywhere in the document, not from the root. It does not depend on the complete hierarchy above the element, which makes it more stable than absolute XPath. Dynamic XPath is not a separate type. It is a strategy built on top of relative XPath. You use it when attributes like IDs or class names change between sessions. Instead of matching the full value, you use functions to match the stable part of it. Functions such as contains, starts with, text, and normalize-space help us create dynamic XPath expressions. We are going to see these functions in detail. Let us start with the contains function. It allows us to match a portion of an attribute value rather than the entire value. The general syntax of the contains function is double slash then contains function, which takes attribute and partial value. Here, you can also use star instead of a tag name if you want to search across all element types. Contains checks whether the specified attribute contains the given partial text. This is particularly useful when attribute values are dynamic and may change partially each time the page loads. In the example shown on the screen, this XPath searches for an input element whose name attribute contains the text user. For example, it would match elements with attribute values such as username, user ID, or user login. Let us see on the web page. Right-click on the page and click on Inspect. Now, you can click here to select an element to inspect it. Let's inspect the username text box. Here, you can see that the name attribute of the input element is username. Let's write and verify the XPath. We can have XPath double slash input contains at name user. We can see one matching element, and it is highlighted on the page. You can see some more examples of contains function with different tags and attributes. Next, let's look at the starts with function. It matches elements whose attribute value begins with a specific prefix. For example, this XPath locates a button element whose class attribute starts with oxdbutton. Let's verify this XPath on the web page. Here, our XPath is double slash button and starts with function. You can see here the button is highlighted. Have a look at class attribute of button. You can see some additional examples of the starts with function using different tags and attributes. Next, we'll look at the text and normalize-space functions. The text function is used to locate an element based on its visible text content. It is useful when attributes are not available or when the displayed text is unique. In this example, the XPath locates a heading whose visible text is dashboard. Let's check on website. You can see this XPath. It has identified the element, and you can see the highlighted element here. Next is the normalize-space function. Normalize-space function removes leading spaces, trailing spaces, and extra spaces between words before comparing the text. This function is particularly useful when the visible text on a web page contains unwanted spaces or formatting. By normalizing the spaces, we can create more stable and reliable XPath expressions. In the example, the XPath locates the heading whose text is dashboard, even if there are additional spaces around the text in the HTML source. Let's see on the web page. As you can see, XPath expression has successfully located the element. When an XPath matches more than one element, we can use an index to pick a specific one. One important detail. In XPath, counting starts at 1. General syntax is XPath expression followed by index. Double slash input with index 1 gives first input element, and input with index 2 gives second element. Let's see on web page. Here, if we write only input, Xpath returns 3 matching elements. To select the username text box specifically, we can use index, so input and index 2, and you can see the username text box is selected. Similarly, input with index 3 selects the password text box. Next is AND, or operator. The AND or operators allow us to combine multiple conditions within a single XPath expression. The AND operator requires all conditions to be true before an element is selected. In this example, it will select element whose type attribute is password and name attribute is password. You can see on web page this XPath locates the password field because both conditions are satisfied. The OR operator requires only one of the conditions to be true. The element will be identified if at least one condition matches. XPath input at the rate name and username, or at the rate name and password, matches both the username and password fields, because either condition can be satisfied. So, dynamic XPath is a technique, not a fixed rulebook. What we covered in this video, functions like contains, starts with, text, normalize-space, and the and/or operators, are your most used building blocks. But XPath has a rich function library beyond this. As you get comfortable with these, start exploring others. That's all for this video. Visit us at www.automationedge.com to explore more. For queries, visit to https://community.automationedge.com. Thank you for joining. Happy automating!